It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thank you for spending time with us once again. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University and co-author of The Real Case for Driverless Mobility, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred. Good morning, everybody.
And we have your co-author and publisher of The Dispatcher here too, from Sweden, Michael Sena. Hi, Michael. Great to see you again.
Great to be back. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor. Well, not quite. We're not quite. This is just the first day of September. Can you believe the summer's over? Oh my goodness. Where did it go?
I think we have to the 21st, but I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's still light in Sweden. It's not dark
No,
yet.
no. We're getting close to the equinox. So
Equinox. Ooh,
Yeah.
50-50. Ooh.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you live on the equator that's that way every day?
no, I can't. But it's
That must be boring, mustn't it?
yeah, it is.
Yeah, go ahead. Here we go.
The September edition of the Dispatcher has arrived, and the lead feature is delivering transport systems. Michael, you're taking a look at China and the efforts through tariffs in the US and the EU to prevent or slow down the exports of battery electric vehicles from you know where.
We know where. Yes. As I said, I wrote this so that people who wonder what's going on one side of the Atlantic versus the other side, and with respect to tariffs, would have an idea of how it started, how it's developed, where it is, and where it's likely to be. The situation with China is one very clear example of what happens when governments, non-government organizations, including the United Nations, and children are counted on to develop industrial policy. We have a situation right now where no one really knows, particularly the car companies, what's going to happen next, what new idea someone is going to come up with that they got at a conference somewhere or they heard on the internet. That's going to be the next solution and the best solution for how people get themselves around. You know, we had a system, internal combustion engines. They had some problems in terms of emissions, particle emissions as well. The car companies were working diligently to improve these cars. 20 years ago, more than 20, almost 25 years ago, Prius came up, or Toyota came up with a design for a car that would almost have the amount of fuel required to go a kilometer or a mile, and thereby reduce the emissions. But somewhere around 2012, 2014, someone then holed up in Palo Alto decided that the company that he had taken over from its inventors or founders was going to solve every problem that we had with cars by making every car battery electric. And from that point to where we are today, we have had companies falling all over each other to say we are going to have battery electric vehicles by this date, and we're going to have no emissions from cars, and everything is going to be hunky-dory. And now we're in a situation where countries, all of Europe, the United States, Canada, have decided that they really would like to have their car industries because they employ a lot of people, and there are other advantages to having that kind of an industry in your country, and really don't like the idea of China becoming the factory for cars as well as pretty much everything else. 100%, I think 100%, according to my survey. Every time I go into a store and look for hats and see where the hats are made, I've yet to find a hat that's made anywhere than China. So they've decided that they would prefer to have their own car companies, and therefore the United States has put 100% tariff on all battery electric cars coming in from China, and the EU has got a variety of different tariff amounts based on how much the companies have been subsidized. So that's the situation that we're in right now. And as I said at the end of the article, we're not really going to know what's going to happen next until after the election on the 5th of November in the United States, when we all decide, I continue to get to vote, we all decide who is going to be the next president, and then based on that, what the policies might be. So that's why I wrote the article.
State do you vote in?
What's that?
Which state do you vote in?
One who has left the United States and has to vote in the last state where they lived, where they were registered to vote. And for me, that's Florida.
Good.
Yeah, why good? It's not that good because, so far, whoever I voted for hasn't won. But I continue to get to vote.
Well, join the club. What do you think? Well, no,
Why?
I did vote for a couple winners. Boy, did I vote for some losers.
Yeah. I don't want to go there. I didn't vote until 1976. That was the first election that I voted in, and I could have voted in 1968. So I didn't vote in those first two elections.
How could you not vote in 68? But we're not going to make this about 1968. Even though I might like
we're
to.
Not going to do
we're
that.
Not going to.
Yeah. So, any questions that you have on the article? Well, anything that I wrote in there that sent up flags, or anything that you think I missed?
What
do you think?
You have some interesting points, and one being that Tesla, which manufactures in China as well, is kind of getting a break in Europe. Tell us about that.
Well, it's getting a break everywhere. I mean, the fact that it was the first car company that was able to set up its own factory without having a joint venture, which eventually led to China opening up the possibility for other car companies to get out of the joint ventures that they were forced to get into. But by that time, it didn't matter because the joint ventures had already gotten all of the car companies' intellectual property. They didn't really need to have them anymore. And then they're getting a nice break from Europe, because Europe is determined that because it's a U.S. company and not a Chinese company, it didn't get as much of the subsidies that the Chinese companies like BYD and SAIC and others, XPeng and so on, Geely, that they had gotten. So the amount you pay in tariffs in Europe is based on their evaluation of how much you've received in subsidies. So they're floating around and doing a very good job of getting their cars, even though they're made in different places, getting them to be treated like they've been made where they should be made.
Yeah, but I think also, at least I know Elon has said he's trying to make vehicles in the location where they're going to be consumed. And of course, we have the plan in Germany with respect to Tesla that I guess it's really supposed to provide the vehicles for Europe instead of the Chinese vehicles, I guess, in that concept. But
and some of them, but not of them, but not all of them.
Yeah,
most of the cars that we've gotten in Europe have come from China.
Yeah, and at this point, maybe because Germany's still ramping up, but again, I guess from a conceptual point of view, the tariff should be proportional to the amount of subsidy that an entity receives. I think that's a good. That's not. I think the EU is going at it the right way. If in fact the tariffs are meant to level the playing field for production, to try to make production be done at somewhat the best place that it can be done for the particular entity. I mean, those vehicles still have to consume some logistics costs, and I guess since since I used to run global logistics symposia 30 years ago. We had a great time. That was at the very beginning of all this, sort of globalization stuff. And that whole logistics system has become enormously more efficient, but there's still a substantial logistics cost in producing something, in one place and then having to take it to another place to sell it and all that stuff. So that all fits in, and yeah, this is a troubling issue because again, this is going in there and being anti-competitive with respect to that, trying to establish monopoly. People often do this. There are complaints with respect to products being, in some sense, subsidized by investors, and therefore go and take other companies and not properly compete, whatever, and then all of a sudden the existing companies then can't compete, go out of business, and then of course then you create the monopoly and the prices rise. I mean, it's been an economic challenge since the beginning of economics or capitalism, or whatever you want to talk about. It's a fundamental thing. I just don't know what to do about it.
But I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing for countries to allow monopolistic kinds of practices in the country that are business related, but it's quite another thing when you're part of the organization that is supposed to be controlling this kind of monopolization and subsidies to countries by the government, which is what China says. Well, we're not really doing that. Well, they are. I mean, it's been proven over and over and over again. Of course, they're doing that, and they're doing it in a major way. And they say, well, this isn't fair. Well, if you're going to be part of the World Economic Forum, the organization that's in charge of that's everybody's a member of this, who wants to be able to work with other countries and sell their and China became a member in 2001. They have to abide by the rules, and the rules are very clear. You can't subsidize, and companies have gotten major fines, and governments have been slapped on the hands, including the United States, for subsidizing in various ways, and China can't get around this. And the problem is that they did this in a very conscious way. I mean, they established this as a goal. They did a great job of cornering the market on all of the supplies. They provided the subsidies that were required to get the cars into the market. I mean, you could say that we tried to do the same thing in the United States and in Europe by giving people great incentives to buy these cars. Well, they did that and fostered the entire market in their own country. There are over 200 companies making these cars, and it was double that a couple of years ago. I feel sorry for anybody who's going to buy one of these cars and suddenly the company is going to disappear.
Doesn't that look like the auto industry here in 1920 or something like that? How many car companies? There was a Mercer car company of whatever, and there were like hundreds of them. And I guess that that's sort of that kind of thing sort of happens in the beginning of, or not in the beginning, in the sort of first phases to
very
growth.
Different. Very, very, very different in China. All of these companies were promoted not by the central government, but by the local government where these countries were situated. They were giving all kinds of incentives to be able to build in these different provinces rather than building just in Shanghai or in Beijing.
Well, if you're a country with 1.4 billion people, you need some work for the 1.4 billion people. I guess making cars is something that they could put them to work. I mean, in some sense, it's striving for some sort of full employment.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you off the hook here. We've got the United States got 330 million people, And
Yeah,
they need to
maybe
find
4.
work for lots of those people. Better work
No,
can't
I
be
agree.
found.
No, I agree. I agree. We have 8 billion people on the planet. What do they, I mean, what kind of Ponzi scheme do we have to establish to keep everybody working? I mean, that is, maybe we should change our our moral values and say, working is just not the thing one should do. I don't know. Everybody should have guaranteed income. How do you think about that one, Michael? No, let's
Oh,
not
come
go
on,
there.
no, let's
Oh
not go
my
there.
goodness. Oh
No,
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 Jesus.
no,
We're not going to
no,
go there.
no.
Hey,
I'm not a guaranteed income person.
uh, yeah, it it's a tough problem. It is
Mhm.
a tough problem. We saw what happened to scooters. We're seeing what's happening to electric bicycles. Absolute total flood. And Elizabeth won't let me get on a scooter. I guess she wants me to live because she knows as soon as I get on one, about 2 minutes, I'm going to die. I mean, without a doubt,
Yeah.
whatever.
You
But
can put a speed governor on it, so
put a speed
keep you at
governor
five
in
miles
it.
an hour out.
And in some sense, if all of a sudden we have, I guess, 18,000, 28, what did Brad Templeton have in his article last week? I mean, Jesus, where did he get those numbers? I mean, I don't think he talked about the subsidy, but anyway.
We'll move on to the Dispatch Central section
Yeah.
of the newsletter here. Michael, New York City's congestion charging halted is the headline here, and the move was by Governor Hochul on the eve of this taking effect, I think. So
Yep, it was.
may not be over yet completely.
Well, yeah, as I said, and I managed to keep the issue out for 2 months. I was able to add information progressively. I mean, basically, that story was finished by the end of June, but there was a lot to add to it as the summer progressed along. My feeling on tolls, congestion, so-called congestion charging, I wrote about in my first book, Beating Traffic. I wrote that book because people mostly governments, were falling all over themselves to institute so-called congestion charging, which is just a tax. London, Stockholm were among the first two, and they've continued. And I've said over and over again, this is a tax against those who can least afford to pay it. There's no distinction between someone who's barely making it, has got 3 jobs, needs to get from one job to the other for whatever reason, and has managed to get a car to be able to make that possible. And they've got all these taxes that are put on the cars. So this was the silliest way of implementing this New York Manhattan tax. It's only Manhattan. The lower part of the city. I mean, of course, people who are living there who don't have a car, and there are plenty of them, thought, this is great, wonderful. But then those people who don't own a car get to where they need to go, either on Uber or a taxi, a real taxi.
Or the
They,
subway. Come on, that's
yeah,
a great subway.
yeah,
They don't
the like,
need.
really, how about taking a bus? Um, so I think it was poorly thought out, the whole concept of how they were going to do this, and no one really looked at it. They were saying the reason we're doing this is to pay for transit. Okay, this is the only way you can pay for transit. When I did an evaluation of the Gothenburg tax. And I said, if everybody in the greater Gothenburg region paid 100 crowns, $10 every year, they would have been able to collect more money than they've been able to collect with this infrastructure that they had to put in place, and managing the infrastructure and paying the companies who were doing all of this work, and then they're getting the the proceeds. It just doesn't make sense to do it this way. I believe that road taxing, putting a fee on using the vehicle, is good if it applies in ways that is affordable by everyone and that applies equally to everyone, whether you're going in a city or not going into a city. And if you don't have an alternative that you already have in place, like in the United States, and most countries, you're paying a fuel tax on top of the money that you would pay to buy a gallon or a liter of petrol or diesel or whatever. You're paying a tax on that, and that money is earmarked. Well, it started out as being earmarked in the United States, and less than 50% of it now is being used for these purposes. So it wasn't well thought out. It's very possible that once the election is over, and if the person who they think is going to win wins, then it'll come back up again, and everybody will be happy because it's only those people coming from New Jersey and Connecticut who are going to have to pay it. But no, it's not that. It's people coming from the Bronx and people coming from Queens and people coming from Staten Island, and they're going to have to pay this. And they vote, and the politicians know that they vote, and then they finally came to their senses and said, "Boy, we better not do this before the election because they're not going to vote for us." She's a Democrat.
Very interesting. And you wonder too. I mean, we have the Easy Pass toll system all over the place here.
Yeah.
And I think it was sold initially. We'll need less manpower. The toll booths will go away and be less expensive for drivers. Well, that hasn't happened.
No.
Yeah. That number of Pandora's boxes were open on that one. I mean, they're all over the place. Bill Vickery was the guy who sort of started, I think, all this, or at least pushed it hard. Congestion pricing. It's like most things, it favors the rich.
Mm-hmm. It does. Get all the riffraff. Get the riffraff off the roads.
Get the riffraff off the road. Yeah. It favors the rich. And why does it favor the rich? Because it asks them to pay something with a currency that means basically nothing to them, that they have in abundance. Mm-hmm. And so, in a sense, it is no skin off their, with respect to this. Mm-hmm. Nose. Oh, nose. Yes, nose. Thank you. I was going unfortunately, never mind. I won't. Yep. And to somebody else, it's excruciatingly painful. Mm-hmm. And so here you're taking a commodity, which is access to mobility, and you're saying you can make it available to one, which is no skin sweat off their nose, and to the other, it says, I can't feed my family now. Yeah. There's something fundamentally unfair. But about that approach.
The rejoinder is, well, you shouldn't be driving your car anyway because it pollutes the environment. I mean, it makes things worse for everybody else. You should be using public transport. Well, you tell that to someone who's got 3 jobs and who's going to be trying to keep those 3 jobs. And okay.
But then when you look at that public transit, if that thing works for you and works well for you, guess what? You're taking it.
You wouldn't have been taking your car in the first place.
You wouldn't have taken your car in the first place. Probably. Yeah. If the darn thing's good, the car is somewhat great, but it's not perfect. And in a sense, if the alternative was great, and the people probably, if you look at the people that are in mass transit today, it's for those that it works well. or at least good. Okay. But then when you total it up across the country and you say how many people are doing this, it's not 3%. It's not,
Well,
even in New York City, it's not.
New York City,
Even,
New York City
even,
is the highest public transportation use in the United States is in New York City.
Of course it is. But
Yeah.
even then, what was Jerry Hudd doing when he lived in Brooklyn to go up to CCNY? He was driving. Yipes.
Yeah.
Yipes. Why? Because
My father lived on Bedford Avenue in Brooklyn for 2 years when he went to Pratt. He had a night, which was just around the block from where he lived. He had a night job on 125th Street, close to the Apollo, at a Woolworth, at a Grant's building, Grant's, W.T. Grant's, and he took the train.
Yeah.
Now, would he have taken a car if he had it? I mean, it would have taken him a lot less time to get up to the store where he worked. But the train was the best option that they had at that time. So why is Jerry not using the train to get from where he lives in Brooklyn to CCNY, which is where is it? Is it in the Bronx?
Near the Bronx. Yeah, I think it's still Manhattan. 145th Street or something like that.
Okay, it's still Manhattan.
Yeah. I just was there. I took A train to 145th Street subway station on the A train express. It's really great from Penn Station. Perfect from between those. And if I would have had a car there, never taken it. Probably wouldn't even take it at night when there's nobody there. Why? Because the train is perfect. The subway is perfect. But unfortunately, the subway and where we are in mass transit is only perfect around the nation 3% of the place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, only 3% of the places. The rest. So come on, mass transit. Why don't you become relevant in 53% of the places? How about 93% of the places? Get your act in gear. Okay.
Well, we're gonna help make that happen.
We're gonna help make that happen.
Yes.
We're gonna help make that. We're gonna redefine the whole darn thing.
Exactly.
Because it needs to be redefined. Because right now, where it is at 3%, and half of that is in the New York metropolitan area. So you take half of that out of there. Rest of the nation, it's 1.5%. And then Scranton, it's what? Does it even exist?
Oh yeah, we've got Coles County of Lackawanna Transit. It's there. Yeah.
What market share? What mode split do you think they have of all the trips in the Scranton region?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope to have Scranton as one of our trial areas. So I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to explain in our forum here what's happening with how many people Coles is taking.
But my point is that the people that they're taking, for them it works. Okay, so please continue to do that. Okay, don't stop. Just because we're coming with this great new thing. That's for everybody else. You continue to do your thing.
Exactly.
We do not want to replace you. You are doing a great job.
We're the unmet need.
Continue to do that. We're looking at the whole other thing.
The unmet need, right?
The unmet need.
Yes.
That people can't, that people would have to, who knows what. And hopefully give it to them in a way that they can still feed their family.
Exactly.
Okay, which is not what the congestion charge is going. That kind of thing does to them. Okay.
I wish my wish is that congestion charging would be put to sleep and left to sleep, a slumber that where they would never wake up. It's just something. It was a bad idea to start with. It went away in the 1800s. Tolls everywhere around London and various places. It went away, and then someone brought it back, and they thought it was a wonderful way of getting money into the coffers of the cities, and it's turned out to be a nightmare for everyone. So please,
why not just charge rich people, tax them? They really don't care about the money, really, do they? They have so darn much of it, really? There's only one guy, and I'm not voting for him. Okay, just pay. Why not be more like Cuban? Okay, holy hell! If you pay $288, how much did you put in your pocket? 4 times that? What the heck's a 288 compared to the 4 times that you put in your pocket?
I'm not sure what the 288. I'm not sure what the 288 is. Is that a
288 million apparently is what he paid in taxes?
Oh,
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, right? I'm not sure all of our listeners know who Mark Cuban is.
Well, look it up. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
No, but I mean, some people, other people say, "Oh, no, paying any taxes." Well, whatever. Come on, cut it out. Really? You value that money that much that you got to keep it all? Cut it out. Whoops. Yipes.
I have some friends who are libertarians. I have some friends who are libertarians.
Well, great. Libertarian, whatever. Okay. I mean, I hope you choke on it. Never mind. Whoops. What's happened? Here
we'll get back to the Dispatch Central section of the newsletter for a minute. A couple of other items real quick to touch on. Michael, you cover the new driver control assistance systems regulation being developed by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. These are issues that you've worked on for a long time.
I try to promote the work that the UNECE WP29 is doing because it is so important. And the whole idea of having a global standard for systems that help to provide better control of the cars, better safety, et cetera. And this group is doing phenomenal work. And very few people, unfortunately, know that this is being done. And at least in the United States, part of the reason for that is that the UNECE regulations, which are promulgated, don't go automatically into the federal motor vehicle safety standards. They're changed and they're modified. Not all of them get in. Most of them do, but they're changed into the federal motor vehicle safety standards. In most countries, in all countries within the EU and other countries, Japan, Korea, Australia, etc. So the 2 major countries, 3, Canada, United States, and China, don't follow the UN regulations. They have their own sets of regulations. And I think it would be great if we had one standard that covered the entire world. We have in Europe and these other countries, we have what's called type approval. And I've mentioned number of times. And every time I mention it in the context of the United States, people say, well, we never have that. That can never work here. We have, I don't believe that. And I will continue to keep pushing this until people begin to start to actually discuss it in a serious way and not just dismiss it as being something that they do over there, but we could never do it here. So I use every opportunity I can to say this is something new that's being done by the UNECE, and it's going to affect the cars. Even if you don't have it in the United States, the cars that are being designed to operate in Europe, Japan, and every place else will incorporate this, and eventually they'll be sold in the United States. And one way or another, you're going to get it. And it would be nice if it was something that was part of the federal motor vehicle safety standards as well.
Again, this is, just fundamental best practices. I
Yes.
mean, why wouldn't everybody want to do best practice? Maybe not best. How about just good practices? Okay. I mean, in some sense, let's just make them good. The whole, crash worthiness, collision avoidance, automated emergency braking, all that stuff. Just Mike, come on. I mean, this all has to do with trying to make the product better, all the products better. And
Yep.
and I think, adopting these things, that sea rise raises every ship.
Yeah, exactly.
And why there's even any argument, discussion, or whatnot. I mean, everybody should be just yearning, please, why not? What are we saving? Although, back with respect to one of the comments that I was going to make with respect to the congestion pricing, some of the promotion of this stuff is done by those who make the gizmos that are going to collect the data and do it. This is what put me, I used to be a big fan of ITS America and all that stuff, but it just seemed to me that, my goodness, a lot of the things that we were doing in transportation was more focused on which gizmo somebody had to buy rather than, what the heck it was, what good it was going to do. And of course, right now, or we've been in a situation in the U.S. with electric vehicles that all of a sudden are this wonderful, I call it maybe the best taxing system ever invented by humankind, the gas tax, no longer could generate the income that the gas tax generated, simply because one wasn't using gas anymore. One's using now electrons, electricity. And one wondered, how do you tax that? And of course, everybody says, hey, we'll put gizmos on cars and we'll follow you and we'll track you and count and just use my gizmo, as opposed to what's been really the most elegant thing about the gas tax is it used no gizmos.
No, it's very simple.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. You tax it at the wholesale level. There are only a few places where you have to collect it. You make sure that the stuff out there has a little dye in it, so that in case some bank robber comes and gets it, and all of a sudden opens the bag, the dye comes out. Well, it's in the gas. It's not the same thing. That you're using, stuff for which the tax has been paid on, and of course at the retail side, since they've had to pay for it to put it into the tanks, they're going to make sure they collect it from you and you don't cheat. And so therefore, all of a sudden this tax must be of all taxing systems ever devised, must have the greatest capture number in terms of percent captured versus percent you should have captured out of it, of any tax. And now we're stuck. We no longer have the mechanism. The way that we're going to proportionalize how we charge you is how much you consume. And the measure of consumption is just how much gas you consume. And the environmentalists should have loved it, because my goodness, that means that, hey, if now that's basically the amount that I consume is the amount that I'm polluting and whatever, and I'm taxing on that. Everybody was so darn happy, beautiful. Now with electricity, where'd you get that? Where'd that come from? Oh, you had a solar roof and you got your car, you're not paying nothing. What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I got to put a gizmo on you. I'm a gizmo manufacturer. Great. I love it. Never mind. Whatever. That's my rant. You got to do your ranting. That was my rant.
I think in New Jersey and some other states, what they're doing is charging a registration, kind of an added fee for vehicles to try to make up for some of that.
Sure, but that's not proportional to the amount that they really use it. Yeah, it's just, listen, I hate to say it, we have 4 cars. She walks me to work. I mean, how much do we use of the? I guess who cares, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it really, if it's anyway, to me, the gas tax is just so elegant, so elegant, so elegant. But anyway,
And my strong feeling is that if there had been an adult in the room when all of this started and said, this is going to affect this, maybe we should put some people together and come up with a proposal, and then we'll run it through and decide how we can, make this a good idea rather than a bad idea. I have one of the things that troubles me and has troubled me for quite some time is that our post offices, at least in where we live, we don't have a postal service anymore. We have competing postal services, and the main postal service that was part of the national government is now owned by Denmark. We don't have post offices anymore, and our mail now is being delivered every other day instead of every day. I mean, it's suddenly it we don't have something that we had and that worked extremely well, both for mail and for packages. No one considered at the time that email came about that people would use this instead of using the postal service. If someone had just half a second had thought, maybe everyone who sends an email should pay the equivalent of a stamp. And back then, when this was all starting, stamps, at least in this country, stamps cost a third of what they cost today. And we've had 50% rises in stamp costs every 6 months to a year for the last 5 years. If someone just said, we can do this, and there's no reason that we can't do this. It's very simple. It's very similar to the gas tax, and this will help support the postal services for people who can't afford to have their own computer. Who if the post offices disappear, people who aren't able to use this, don't know what email is. There's a lot of people in the world who don't. Funnily enough, this is the same thing. If we had thought about this when it was happening back in 2012 or so, we wouldn't be in the situation we are right now, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for roads, how we're going to pay for bridges, and how we're going to pay for the maintenance that's required. That was quite straightforward with the gas tax.
I'm trying to think as to, it seems to me that somebody did mention it at some point, and and of course it was kind of outrageous. You're gonna, for these, I mean, how many gazillion emails have I sent? How many spams I mean, holy, do you know how many stamps I would have had to buy?
You wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have. There would be no thing. There would be no spam. There would be no spam. There would be no spam.
Michael.
Yes.
It is kind of amazing. I mean, it wouldn't exist.
No.
We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be putting it out. We wouldn't, I guess not. I mean, the better question to ask, are we better off because we do have it, or aren't
what?
we?
Are we better off because we have email?
Free email? I mean, I consider it free. I consume it as if it's free. Nowhere in my mind do I, when I hit send to 10 billion people spamming them like hell, do I think, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be bankrupt? I mean, it's nowhere in my mind.
No, when I had my newsletter called Compilations, and I had that up until the time I began working for Volvo, I had printed, double A4, whatever, A3 size, folded them, 8 pages, 6, 12 pages, put them in the envelopes, put the stamps on, took them, put them in the mailbox, and mailed it out to the however many people I had, 125 people. I didn't charge anybody for that, but I knew exactly what it cost me to send out the newsletter. Today, I send the dispatcher to people. The cost for me to send that to everyone is the cost of having my computer and having, electricity and paying for the connection to the internet. I mean, there is a cost associated with it, but I would, if I didn't have to have all of the crap that goes along with the World Wide Web, I could have stuck with the SMTP and just use the internet protocol instead of having a web browser and having to have all of the other junk, including the cybersecurity that's necessary in order to keep the bad guys out of my computer. It's it goes back to what I said in the first place. If we think about these things, if we just try to project ourselves a couple of years ahead, it doesn't take that much brain power. We don't need AI to do this. Think about it. What is the result of an action that we're taking? Whether it's deciding to give people money back for buying an electric car. Sorry for all of my friends who have electric cars, Fred. But if we think about all of these things, we can make things better for everybody rather than having what we have today. The fact is that the car companies are really in tough shape right now. They've put an enormous amount of money into trying to make a competitive car that can be used and bought by everyone, and they're having real difficulties with this, partly because the control that China has over all of the value chain, and they've bought up all of the supplies, and they've forced companies to have difficult times building batteries like Northvolt, which I'll be writing about in the next issue. Think about it. That's all.
Yeah, well, all that investment makes each car that we now purchase more expensive because
Sure.
At some point, guess who? We
Exactly.
have to pay for it.
Yes.
I mean, it's the money's not coming out of Washington. It could be coming out of the economy and investors and who knows what SoftBank and who knows what going bankrupt or who knows other. No, I didn't say SoftBank goes bankrupt.
No.
Other companies going bankrupt
No.
and whatever and so on or investors losing out, I guess. But it ends up being paid for, and some question is there some fundamental good that's going to come out of all this?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we should ask ourselves whether or not there's been fundamental good associated with having email. Although I might like to jump on, I guess I sure hope so because I certainly use it enough.
I use it. It's the only thing that I use. It's the only thing other than search.
Alan, you're much better at sending than reading.
No, I don't know how to read. And that's why, in fact, that's why we had you do Audible. And the Audible version is now available for you. Just go to audible.com and what that was a paid political bribe. Never mind. Yeah. Yeah, I am pretty bad. Don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll turn to a couple of quick. There's a lot more in the dispatcher as well. We encourage everybody to get in there and read it.
It's so well written. Again, you're just marvelous, Michael.
Couple of quick headlines from the Smart Driving Cars newsletter just out as well. Alan, self-driving Waymo car goes wrong way into oncoming traffic in Arizona. This is from at least one local TV station there, and
I mean it's headline news, and I got a call from Good Morning America telling me that they were going to put this on and wanted to know if I would be willing to comment or come on and discuss it. And so I told them what I was going to say, which is basically what I have written, and of course they didn't call me back.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't find that they actually did it. Maybe hopefully I convinced them that they shouldn't even actually do it. I mean, this is news. What the heck? Really? I mean, people going wrong way in a traffic mess is
Humans
sort
have
of
never done
normally
that, have they?
it normally occurs and it occurs in New Jersey all the time. What is it? And this is in Phoenix and it's raining. I mean, do people in Phoenix, have they ever seen rain? Do they know how to behave in rain? They probably don't. I mean, there is this mess. And of course, I guess somebody must have had their cell phone out just recording the mess. And this Waymo vehicle comes at them, and and all of a sudden, is that all it takes for something to go viral? Nobody got hurt, nobody whatever. I mean, this is, oh my goodness, let's put it on Good Morning America. Boy, am I
But
glad that
it couldn't have been the driver the driver of the car who was filming this. I mean, how quickly?
why couldn't it have been? Well,
Because
it
they're
could
not.
have been because
They're,
people who drive in USA always have their phones. Okay, so just to turn it like that and take a
I mean,
picture,
isn't that illegal?
of course.
Okay. So the person who
Why do you
did
think
this,
we have a mess? Why do you think there was such a jam there? Probably everybody was looking at their phone.
yeah.
Isn't that the way people drive in Sweden these days?
If they,
In Jersey, this is the way we drive.
It's not just the way they drive, it's the way they
Where's my
dine,
phone?
it's the way they converse with other people.
Oh my God. I'm
We don't
being
have to
I'm
go
being a
further.
little silly. Of course I'm being a little silly, Michael, but
yeah.
but everybody. Now, yes, I think it was a passenger that did it. I didn't even look closely. I'm wondering whether or not the Waymo vehicle had actually a driver in it, because not all of them are running around without a driver,
No, no, they're not.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so I didn't even look closely. This is like, that's news? Really? ABC headline. What? Okay.
From the University of Buffalo, UB researchers probe safety of AI in driverless cars and find vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and I think it's good work, but I guess I'm trying to raise a broader question. Why would there be a tax on these vehicles? I mean, really? Somebody doesn't, the person doing that doesn't have something better to do? What? This is not, hey, let's see if we can crash a car. I mean, come on. I don't know. Oh, it's the Chinese or somebody who's attacked. I mean, come on. Really? Come
But
on. Stop misbehaving. Okay? Or why do we have to think that folks are going to be out there just trying to figure out, oh, here's something. Can I screw it up?
but why did this have to do with AI? What was the AI connection
Oh,
here?
I don't know, because everybody is now worried about that, not looking at people with AI because somehow it thinks, I don't know, but this has to do with cybersecurity and attacks on these things.
Yeah, but
And
that has
whether
nothing to do with AI. I mean, the cars,
AI's
they're
AI's thrown in there as just something to catch somebody's attention.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Okay,
There's no
all
AI.
right.
Okay.
So
This has more to do with someone going in there and hacking somebody's self-driving car. Okay. Now, why does somebody, I'm just raising the question. Really, what are you, a 13-year-old with nothing else to do, and you're just going to sit there and see if you can hack into a car? I mean, whatever.
but this has been going on ever since cars have been connected, so that you have access to the to the onboard devices through
Yeah,
the connection through
yeah, yeah,
not necessarily even an internet connection, but okay, you have an internet connection, and you're able to mess up
yeah,
the
yeah.
the system that controls lane keeping, for
Sure,
example, or you're
sure,
able
sure,
to confuse the cruise control
sure.
of the car.
So who's doing that?
It's well, there are two groups. There's the black hats and there's the white hats. The white hats are doing it because they want to show that it's possible, and you've got to, close all of the
Are there any
loopholes.
black hats?
Well, there aren't any black hats yet because there's no money in it. There's no money to be earned yet because
How do,
there aren't enough cars who are in this situation. I mean,
how
you
you
can't.
gonna,
Okay,
so how are you gonna earn it? How are you gonna put money into it? Just because you can do a bunch of cars? Who's gonna fund you? Oh, it must be some bad country outside. I mean, get
yeah,
a life, folks.
it's
Okay,
it's it's
come
the
on.
it's the James Bond. Every James Bond movie. We saw just the other night. We saw No
That's
Time to Die.
fiction. It's fiction.
Well, no, I mean
It's fiction.
if you've got a way of controlling all the cars in Brooklyn or in Manhattan or in San Francisco, and they're all gonna go to one place, and everything is going to be tied up. No ambulances, no police cars are going to be able to move anywhere. That's a concern. That's a major problem.
No, it's not a major problem. A
Why?
concern to whom? Who would
Concerned
want to do that?
somebody who can say, "We'll
Ransomware.
we'll
Oh, come
exactly."
on, get
It's
a
a rest,
life. Get a life. I mean,
Alan.
what we need is some psychological help on people. Okay,
No,
first, this is a fear-mongering tactic. Okay, typical, oh, let's make people really fear stuff, of which they're really, I mean,
but that
come
isn't that why we all uh, have software on our computers like Norton software? I mean, isn't that why
on.
we have it on our computers?
Shouldn't we be talk about something that we shouldn't be in a room saying, hey, if we took all the money that we put in all that stuff and put it into psychological care for people to say, hey, come on, get a life. Okay, why are you doing this?
Alan,
Really?
we have I've seen a video that someone who infiltrated a group who are getting elderly people to empty their bank accounts into their account. Someone infiltrated one of these organizations, and the people doing it were in Alicante, in Spain, and making phone calls to people. And they showed this, what the person is saying on the phone, what they're saying to the person on the phone, and how they're doing this. We're calling from the bank, and we need to help you because we see that your money is in danger. Give us the code to your thing. You do this, hand over the card to someone, and they're going to come and get your card, and they're going to make. They do all of this. What do you mean psychological? These are criminals. Everybody who's a
Okay,
criminal is nuts.
well, that maybe the approach to criminals should be more on trying to want in the first place keep them from becoming criminals and basically making sure from the almost the onset that they aren't interested in doing those kinds of things. What would that cost? What would that do? Why here we are you asked the question earlier that if we just thought about some things that we end up spending a hell of a lot of money on, you know, what would be the motivation of somebody to go in there and, cause a Cadillac's door to open just because they can get into their system while they're going 90 miles an hour down the New Jersey Turnpike? I mean, how does that get into somebody's head as, oh, that's a thing that I want to do. Ooh, this is how I'm going to get rich. Ooh, this is how I'm going to be a influencer on YouTube. Ooh. I mean, come on.
Alan,
What?
we just had 3 young boys who were under the age of 16
Mm.
who committed incredibly brutal murders,
Mm.
who have been put in prison now for approximately 12 years each. These are kids.
Mm.
And the reason that these kids were recruited on the internet, and it was a bidding process, this bidding process is put out there by the criminal gangs, saying, you can take this. We're going to give you 100,000 crowns. We're going to give you a Rolex watch. And you go to this place, you pick the gun up, you go to that place, you kill this person. This is going on in Sweden right now. And you could say, well, what's going on here? Why is this happening? How can this possibly be happening? And the simple reason is that our laws weren't set up to have people living here who were trained in criminal activities. They've come here because it's paradise for them. And they can recruit 16-year-olds and have been able to do this without the kids feeling, well, I can kill this person. I'm not going to go to jail. Nothing's going to happen to me because I'm underage. Well, guess what? These kids, now the laws changed suddenly, and these kids are now in jail for 12 years each. If it was in the United States, they'd probably be in there for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that preventing?
We put a Z on them.
Is that preventing people from doing these things? No, it's not.
Well, maybe we should be offering them 2 Rolexes for not doing that. Okay. Maybe. I'm just.
We're a little off.
Okay.
We're off script here.
Off script.
We're off track.
Yes, we're off script. These are really broad questions.
This is a big question that needs to be addressed.
Yes,
very big question. When it comes to cybersecurity in cars, it needs to be addressed, because if you've got people in cars, you can at least say, "Come on, don't do this." If you've got cars without people in them, and you've got 1,000 of them out there, and they all do this because they're controlled now, this is a major problem, and it needs to be. We need to have ways of addressing
it. Maybe.
I'm just going to throw
the maybe is a major problem. What gets me, I guess, there are more white hats than there are black hats. But my view, maybe. Go ahead.
We'll throw out one more headline, I guess, from the Smart Driving Cars newsletter, because I know you want to. Maybe you do, maybe you don't want to talk about this. In the Wall Street Journal, Alan had a headline on Friday that read, "How will self-driving cars make ethical decisions on the road?" And for those who are listening, Alan shaking his head.
That one, we're back to the trolley problem. Come on. Whatever. Did the Wall Street Journal ask everybody who's driving out there their ethical decisions? And does everybody driving out there have the same ethical decision making? And where does everybody stand on that, on the whole ethics of them? And in fact, as Michael just said, some people just want to take money to go blow up people or something like that. What are their ethical decisions? They're out there driving. Come on. It's just noise. I can't stand it. Whatever, please. I don't know. I guess people have been suggesting we do noise. The other one I wanted you to mention was the Atlanta one, I guess.
Sure. That's the self-driving pods taking passengers from Atlanta Airport to College Park.
Oh, I was ready to pack it in. That personal rapid transit is back. Oh my goodness. Personal rapid transit is back. My goodness, that was a good idea 50 years ago. Okay. And it's still a good idea.
Are they running on tracks? What are they running on?
Of course. It's something like, it's not tracks. It's a road. It's a way that is protected. So that you don't have any kids chasing balls, no bicyclists, no scooteries, no pedestrian, those kinds of things where, I was claiming we could do, wanted to do that 50 years ago. Really? 50 years struggle with that. How unsuccessful have I been, Michael?
Oh, I think it was good. It was good to move on.
It was good.
Definitely good to move on.
But we're back. But I think we are. I think we do have a reasonable approach to what we're trying to do. Of course I do. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. And if I didn't think so, I'm not crazy, am I? Or maybe.
And you'll be talking about it more at the upcoming this week, right? The end of this coming week, the Florida AV.
Yeah, no, Elizabeth and I are going. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm on the program. I don't want to be on the program. I'm going to listen. I'm going to learn.
Uh-huh.
I need to learn. I need to learn. It's about time that I need to learn. I need to learn. So because, classes start, I need to tell the children and I need to teach. So I'm going there to learn and just know what I'm going to say in class for the rest of the semester.
It should be a good conference.
But it should be a good conference. It is still a time for learning.
Where is it?
In Tampa.
Tampa. Hmm.
Yeah. So, we're going down there, go right after my class on Wednesday. So go hopefully learn some stuff. We want to do this. We need to be able to give rides to people who really need a ride.
Well, we want to thank Michael for all of his insights and joining us once again. The website is michaelsena.com. That's where you can find the dispatcher too. And don't forget the book, The Real Case for Driverless Mobility. And the audiobook, as Alan mentioned, is out there too. Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure, as always.
Thank you, Michael.
You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever you turn to for podcasts. You can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thanks for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.
It's been a lot of fun this morning. Thank you, everybody.